Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you. Hey guys and gals, good morning. It's like
we got people hopping on already. Good morning.
7:14 already.
Joni Kruger. Hey, sister.
Yeah, we got family out here.
And, hey, Griselda. Marna,
morning,
you're
everybody.
Always right on,
Hi, Eddie.
on the spot.
Eddie, Madison.
Good morning.
Laura, Reagan. Hi, guys.
Hey,
and gals. I know we're going to have people joining.
Violet. Hey, Phil.
Philip. What up, bro? Hey, dude. Did you buy a Ram truck?
I saw you said goodbye to your car.
Man,
sorry.
Got rid of
Joseph George.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Ironman's on here.
Hey, Kim.
Our dude. Yeah, that's gonna be cool. Yeah, Joe, I want to have you on here soon, and no doubt about it, I want you to tell your story.
Tabitha, she's on here. She's in labor right now. Sister,
Tabitha's getting ready to have a baby right now. Dear God.
Kristen Nix, hey girl, how are you?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Well, hey, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Just a couple thoughts as we get rolling here this morning. Super stoked for our services yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to see them, I want to invite you to go back and check them out. I'm not the guy. I'm not the guy that likes to be hyper spiritual and always use the excuse that, hey, God told me this. But I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of those moments where I'll tell you, I feel like God gave me a message or a word yesterday. Maybe it was just for me, but I felt like I was supposed to share it with you.
Yesterday, though, you did say I'm not very spiritual, but what you meant to say was you're not very hyper spiritual.
Yeah.
Because when you said that, I'm like, what do you mean you're not very spiritual? Yes, you are.
No, you know what I mean. I'm talking about like.
Ooh, Joseph said he's in.
Yes.
Oh, you. All right.
Phil, hey, all Philip, right. You did get rid of your car. I'm praying for you, dude. That's got to be like the loss of a loved one. Anyway. So anyway, I want to encourage everybody to go check that out. And I'm super excited for this morning because one of my best friends, guy that I just have loved, his kiddos, like I had the privilege of coaching his kids, and just man, his little men are some of the sweetest. Here's the deal. As I introduce this gentleman this morning, I just want you to know and understand something. Like you can always, as a dad, and I've told this guy this before, but as a dad, I judge dads on their kiddos. And I shouldn't say that in a bad way. Like I don't look at them and their whole life isn't judged on that, but there's a whole lot that says a whole lot about a man when you look at their wife and their kids. And this dude today is a dad of all dads. The very first time I met him was in a church service. He came with his wife and kids. I think he was still trying to figure out what it was like. And I watched this dude, and his little man Bricks was crawling all over him in the middle of church service, all up and down his hair and face and pulling on his ears. And he just loved on this kid. And his boys have turned into some of the most, just precious, soft-hearted, humble dudes. And then if you meet Kelly, same deal. He married a princess. I don't know how he got her, but he did. And he married just one of the coolest ladies on earth. And I just got to tell you, like, his life speaks so loudly without him saying a word. And so this morning, I'd like to welcome on my friend Jacoby Shaddix. Good morning, brother.
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you for the amazing intro. I appreciate it, man. And you are correct, man. I got some awesome boys, some great kids, and Kelly, she definitely is that's my queen right there, man. I'm lucky, like you said. I don't know how I got her, but I got her. Man, I've been blessed. Yeah. Just to give you like some backstory, like Kelly and we met back when I was like 16, and I was 17, and we worked at a restaurant together. And she was looking for a friend to go to prom with her. And I'm like, I'll be your friend. I'll be your friend to go to prom. And then, here we are 20 some odd years later, married, 3 kids, getting after life, you know, and so it's she's definitely a blessing, man, and I love her to death.
You're still trying to be her friend.
Yes, I gotta win her heart every day, dude. I gotta win her back every day. It's the challenge.
Gotta win the day. Gotta win the day.
That's right.
Hey,
But
so
yeah, man.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. This is pretty relaxed on here, and so tell us a little bit about what's going on. Like, I know you were actually on tour. What happened? How did this come down? How did you even find out about everything being shut down, and what happened?
So we were on tour in Europe, and we were having it was like, this tour was killing, man. It's some of our best ticket sales we've had throughout Europe, which is awesome. But all the while, we started hearing the news about the virus, and I was in Milan actually on this is my 8th sobriety birthday. So I'm in Milan, and we start to hear more and more news about this stuff. And the next day I left Milan, and I was like, oh, I don't feel too well. And this is before like Milan was in the news. And so then I start freaking out. I go get a blood test. I'm in Germany at this time. I get a blood test, and they're like, the doctor texts me back. He takes my blood. He's like, you have a virus, best regards. And I'm like, okay, like what kind? Some clarity would be good. Well, turns out it was not COVID or Corona. And so I was like, all right, good. I'm glad I'm not ill like that. And so a couple more, I think 10 more shows goes by. And then we were getting worried about shows getting shut down. And finally the promoter came to the office, and they were like, hey, listen, the rest of the dates are shut down. The German chancellor's, put a limit to gatherings. And so we just bought flights out the next day out of Frankfurt and flew home and flew home into self-quarantine. And so I've been here ever since, in the house. And
yeah,
it's really interesting, man, how, this life on the road that I have, it's very fast paced, go, 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 go. And to come home and just fully put the brakes on, and unexpectedly. And, it's a little bit of I have a kind of an interesting transition when I come home, just because I'm like such a fast paced life to like stop. And this was like stop. And I was just in a lot of fear. Honestly, I was like, we got to go to the store. We got to get food, and then I was worried about, feeding the family. And, you go to the store and a bunch of the shelves were empty. And so I kind of was in that like panic mode for a couple days, to be honest. And, I had to just press pause and go, all right, God, like, what do you got for me right now? Because I'm trying to run the show, and I'm way too full of fear. And it's, when my wheels get spinning in my head and that little rat gets going in my mind, the fear gets out of control. And so, I just had to press pause and allow God to take the reins on this one again. And it's a daily challenge with that, to be completely honest, because when I turn on the news, I start to get in fear again. And when I talk to my friends on social media, it's like, okay, I got to pause and just go, all right, man, like, I'm in God's hands. Like, we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting time, but like, I signed on to your service yesterday, and it was like, that was awesome. Your message yesterday was killer. It was so on point. And these opportunities that we're taking, for instance, your church, bringing this thing online and finding ways to connect with people, because we're not meant to be alone, and I think that getting that message directly to my household right there was right on time. And that's all God right there, and it's interesting how it's affecting my business as well. Like I came home off tour, and I'm like, it's done. Like, I don't know when I'm going back out. And so there's, the fear of financial insecurity. And again, I just have to go, God, you got this, I just keep turning it over.
Yeah. Well, just like so many, you know, Jacoby, you've been over the last how many years, and I'd love for people to find out about how you found Jesus. Like, I think that's a great story. And
yeah, man.
we have a close friend that's about that. Oh, can I just say something real quickie?
Yeah.
Sorry. True. Put something in there about what up, Swifty. And so anyway, would you mind, there's a lot of our friends that are trying to find this right now. Could you guys, those of you that are watching, just click the share button real quick. That'll help some of the folks that are trying to navigate to this thing, to find this. That'd be great. But we have a close friend, in a guy named Jason Harper, who, you know, Jacoby and I, and a lot of us there, we love him like a brother. And, you know, and it's exciting to see when we have somebody that has this God thing in their life that helps them to lead others and point others to Christ. And Jason had that. And I just, you know, I don't know if he'll see this today, but I just am thankful for that guy. I'm thankful for him and for, you know, like God's call on his life. I mean, it means a lot to me. And I know it does to you as well, Jacoby. And I want people to hear what happens, because all of us came to that place at some point in our life where we gave Jesus control, like where we, you know, you talked about when we take control, fear comes in, but when we give him control, right, peace comes in and joy comes in. So if you don't mind, sharing that for a minute, dude, I'd love to hear it. I've heard it before, but man, I could hear it every day, all day. And it makes me
Of course, man. So just to kind of give you guys a little, you know, backstory of people that don't know me. My name is Jacoby Shaddix. Yeah. I'm a follower of Jesus. But it took me a long time to come to the point where I, you know, turn my will and my life over to the care of God. And I grew up in a broken home. I had a very loving mother, great mother, eventually had an awesome stepfather, and they loved me to death. But I just had this brokenness in me as a young kid that carried on into my young adult life. And I had this, you know, I hate to say it, like daddy issues, right? But I had an absentee father, and that really was a big issue to me. And so I grew up with this brokenness, and I used that as sometimes as like a crutch, in a sense of, well, this is why I'm all messed up. And so I had a lot of emotions and feelings that I started to cover up with drugs and alcohol as a teenager. And all the while, you know, I fell in love. I was playing rock and roll at the time too. This is when Papa Roach was starting to do some things. And, you know, I had a real hard work ethic. So, you know, I like to party hard, but I worked hard too, you know. And fast forward, you know, the band gets a record deal, this toxic lifestyle that I love to live, that I felt like was my purpose, you know, rock and roll, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like I was into that. That was my deal. And I just kept trying to fill myself with all that stuff, and always coming back to square one, just feeling empty and alone, and all the while having people around me that love me. You know, I at this point I had Kelly in my life, and I just, the drugs and alcohol really took a toll on my heart, the people around me that loved me, my family, Kelly, started having kids, and all the while not really having any kind of spirituality in my life. You know, I read some books, you know, about spirituality. I was invited to a Christian youth camp when I was a teenager, and I went, and I thought everybody was weird. I'm like, no, not these people. And so it's kind of funny, you know, like as time goes on, and I'm in this spiritual space in my life, but I have no pinpoint accuracy on my spirit life. And so I'm reading books about Buddhism and the Tao and things like that, Eastern philosophy. And, you know, granted, there's a lot of good thoughts and ideas in that stuff. It's just, it wasn't filling the God-sized hole in my heart that I had. And I tried to get sober for the first time back. I think Mikhail was 2 years old. And I started going to meetings, to AA meetings. And they told me I needed to find a God of my understanding. And I was like, well, you know what? The last thing I want to be is sober. And the last thing I want to be is a Christian. So I'm going to go look everywhere else in the spirit world. And it took me down, you know, a lot of different rabbit holes and whatnot. But like I said earlier, it was never like filling that God-sized hole inside myself. And there's a saying, it says, God could and would if he were sought. So I just kept hitting my knees and praying every day. Wake up in the morning, I call them hit the caps, hit my kneecaps. You know, I hit the caps and I get in prayer and went out on the road a lot and would fall off the wagon. And I just sobriety was a real struggle for me for quite some time. And I you know, all the while just kind of feeling so guilty and shameful for my choices in my life and my lifestyle. And, you know, just being it was really hard on Kelly, you know, and so I'm in a point in my life now for the last 8 years where I've been doing like a living amends, you know, of just being sober and being honest and being the best man I can be. And I owe that to God. You know, God's alive and working in my life. But to kind of get back to the point of, you know, when I came to, I was praying for God to put people in my life that would just show me you're real, God. Give me a sign, you know. And I was on tour and I was surfing through YouTube and this thing popped up of Brian from Korn, and he had a testimony that was online, and I went and watched it, and I was like, oh man. And he had like mentioned our band and this song that he was listening to of ours, that what he was in, like spiraling out to his rock bottom. And it was like, you know, part of that is ego, right? Because I was like, oh, he mentioned me, wow, you know. But I think that's what it took for God to kind of get my attention a little bit and go, hey, Cope, wake up. Like, I'm trying to talk to you right now, and you just continually are not listening. And, you know, so then I started going down the rabbit hole of watching these people's testimonies. Sonny from POD was another guy that I'd watched his testimony. And then I come home and my wife is training for a marathon. And this fellow by the name of Jason Harper was training Kelly. And so he and I became friends through the process. And I didn't know he was a pastor. He was just like, you know, just another dad. And we were at a wrestling tournament, actually. And we hung out and just chopped it up and talked about life, you know, and we really we just clicked, you know, and we started going on these runs. And after a while, you know, I'm like, man, this guy's got a light coming off of him, you know, what's up with this guy? And I found out later that he was a pastor. I was like, dude, why'd you tell me you're a pastor, bro? He's like, well, you know, sometimes when I lead with that, people get a little like, you know, hesitant or cautious or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, that's all good, man. Like, that's your walk, dude. And, you know, but he had this light coming off him, and the way that he was living and the philanthropic things he was doing. And, you know, because my mom always raised me, you know, leave the world a better place than you found it, you know, bring something good to the table. You know, my mom instilled a lot of really good qualities into me, but, you know, just the lifestyle and drugs and alcohol that I was using kept dampering those things. And so God just kept putting people in my life that were believers, that were followers of Christ, that I was drawn to, whether I liked it or not, you know. And so I started to do these things. We called them spiritual runs, man. I'm like, yo, dude, you got to tell me about this guy, Jesus, man. Give me some like insight. And I started to learn more and more about Christ. And kind of find out, I'm like, that's what I've been looking for, man. I've been looking everywhere else, you know, for this pinpoint accuracy of my spirituality. And I really started to wrestle with the idea of like, oh man, like maybe I do want to follow this guy, Jesus, because I was continually like full on a rebellious kid and always just trusting my own wills, my own desires, my own thoughts and ideas. And I started to realize at this point, like, as I've trusted my own will and my thoughts and my ideas, I always found myself at the scene of the crime. And it was just like, oh, man, something's got to give. So the more and more I learned about Jesus, the more and more I realized that I want to follow him. And I remember it was New Year's Day, 2013 or 2014. It's been a minute. We were on a run, Jason and I, and we were having another one of those spiritual talks. And I just stopped in my tracks and I was like, hey man, like I want to follow Jesus. Like, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is what my heart's been calling for so many years. I just didn't, my ego and my ego always got in the way, and my lifestyle of rebellion always got in the way because it wasn't rebellious. But the more I learned about Christ, I'm like, that dude was rebellious. He was rebelling against the times and what was happening in the world, and going, wake up, people, you know. And Jesus just started speaking to my heart. And you know, I gave myself to the Lord that day. And Jason was kind of funny about it though, because I stopped and I was like, I told him this, and he's like, all right, cool. And then he runs off like to finish the run. I'm like, man, I just gave myself Jesus, like, you give me a hug or something, like, congratulations, you know. And so we get to the end of the run, you know, and it was just kind of funny. I said that to him. I was like, yeah, man, you just like kind of ran off. He's like, bro, I just didn't know what to say. I was kind of like shocked. I didn't expect that. And I was like, yeah, man, well, this is what I want in my life, man. And I appreciate you showing me how you've walked it out in your life. And, you know, that those relationships I value. And for me, I wrestle with God to this day. It's still like a wrestling match. And I think that's what God wants from me. He wants me to be in relationship. And that's what this is about, is a relationship with God, and not just saying that I'm a believer, or that I'm a follower of Christ, but being a follower of Christ and living God's truth in my life. Because I know when I take the reins again, it's like it just slowly starts to turn into a mess again. And I'm like, oh God, how'd I get here again? I'm like, well, Kobe, you're trying to live in your will and your way again, and you're not trusting in God. And and when I say a wrestling match, it's that's what I mean, is like I take my will and my life back into my hands, and then I try to run the show again. And at least I'm willing to wrestle, you know. And it's been a really, it's the best decision I've ever made in my life, to be completely honest, straight up.
Yeah. Dude, I listened to you tell that story, and I have a heart. It makes me emotional, because I think that transformation God so desires from all of us. Like, he wants to give every one of us that hope. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions just about that. And I know there's guys listening that are in gals listening that may be in that place where they're like, man, maybe where you were on that run. And how would you, like, what would you say to them right now? they're looking at their life. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of like trying to grab control right now instead of giving up control. Like when we get into a place of fear causes us to want to try to control whatever we can. Obviously, we know that. That's why all the grocery store shelves are empty, because people are trying to control the variables. So they go and buy it and take care of things. And what would you just say to anybody that's watching in that setting? How would you address them in this particular moment? Big question, I know.
Yeah, man, that is a big one. And for me, it's honestly, it's a personal decision, and it's, I mean, what would I say? I think the best way for me to speak to people on this is to talk about my experience with it, because it's like, if I try to because when people try to tell me what to do, I sometimes I'm like, hold up, you tell me what I got to do. And that's, for me, I had to see somebody walk this life out and see that the dramatic changes that occurred in their life to believe and to follow and to fall in love with Jesus. I know from my experience that I was in the deepest, darkest pits of hell in my personal life, and my search for God was the thing that drew me out. That's the truth. Like, it gave me my life back. It gave me a life worth living, because the life I had before was just a crap show. You know what I'm saying? I want to say the other word. It was a mess, man. And when I'm living my life without Jesus, it slowly, the tree starts leaning back to falling the other way. And it's like, I urge people, especially in this time, man, like, maybe take that long, hard look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself what you really want. Do you want to continue to follow your own plans and your own designs? And what do those plans and designs look like, and how do they end up? Not to say that everybody's intuition is wrong, because it's not. That's intuition, I believe, is God in me, in a sense. But my intuition and my moral compass was broken, straight up. And so now I got the creator of the universe doing works in my heart that are building me into a man that is worthy of having a family that I have, worthy of being the husband that my wife deserves, being able to, Christ has given me that opportunity to be able to look in the mirror again and like be a little bit more comfortable in my skin.
Yeah.
And that's massive for me, because who am I when I'm alone? That's a really good tell of my spiritual fitness, of how God is working in my life. And I've spent a lot of time alone on the road, and it's tough for me to connect with my family back home when I'm alone. And so my relationship with God it's been massive, and when I turn my back on God and I'm going the other way, I start to get shifty, and I start to isolate, and I start to get back in fear. And so, when I want to speak to somebody about making that decision to follow Jesus or not, it's completely up to them. That's the beauty of the whole thing too, man, because nobody had to force me into this. This was a decision that I made on my own. This wasn't a pressure coming from somebody else, but a calling from within, that I continually denied over the years. But yeah, man, that's a great question, man. I've never been asked that question before, so I don't know exactly how to answer it, but I know
that's why I asked it, dude, is because I think so many times we have kind of a patent answer, and I love your very first answer was so good. Is a personal experience that every one of us, a decision, like we all have to make a choice on our own, and it has to be a personal experience. And I think when I start looking at the things, so anyway, let me close the gap on that. if any of you are at that place where you're trying to make like you need help in a decision like that, don't be afraid to DM us at the church or myself or anybody on here. I know our staff is on here right now. If you need to just pray through some stuff and you're ready to give up control, we want to help you do that. But that's, you know, that's a decision you have to come to. Like you have to come to that place on your own. And that's the only way it works. If anybody forces you towards it, you can't grow up and do it. You can't serve God because your parents said you have to serve God. It doesn't work that way. You have to make that choice. And so please don't be afraid to hit us up. We'd love to talk to you. We go on one of those spiritual runs with you.
It would be a virtual spiritual run now.
Right now. Hey, Jacoby.
Here I am.
There we go. There we go.
I'm on my virtual spiritual run now, y'all.
I had another thought that I think is good. So we all have things every day. You and I have talked a lot about this. Like, what are the things that help us keep our brains straight? Because I'm a creative, you're a creative. We just do it. We work in different worlds. But what, like we used to talk about gratitude a lot.
Yeah.
And I was thinking today in my life, when I look back, I'm obviously, and I mentioned this before, I'm thankful for you and your family. I'm thankful for the role Jason played. I'm thankful for the role our church played that we were in together, like at Capitol. We had such a good time there together. I remember, do you remember Easter when you did an Easter service, like your first time to ever tell the story? And it was such a weird experience because our pastor, something happened to him last second, remember? And I ended up sitting with you, and the night before we had to figure it out. But I'm thankful for our pastor there, Pastor Rick Cole, and for the church there. And I don't know if there are other things like gratitude that play a role in your daily life that help you keep giving up control, because that's the challenge, right? And you know what? The opposite of control is obedience, like submission to God. When we are obedient, this whole walk that we have is all about obedience, right? I mean, it just is. How do you, do you have any tools that you could share with us that maybe you use to help give up that control?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like my spiritual condition is based on, I guess, practice makes perfect, but I'm never going to be perfect. I know that. But it's like I said, it's the daily I got to hit the caps right off the top of the day. Like I hit my knees and I turn it over, because like I said earlier, it's like, if I keep trying to control it, the whole thing, which I have a tendency to, I'll take it back again. And then I got to turn it over, and I'll take it back again. And I got to turn it over. I got to be reminded, because I'm stubborn. But one thing that really helps is a gratitude list. That's something that I've done for years. And there's been moments in time where I stopped doing my gratitude lists. And it's funny how when I stop getting grateful on a daily basis, putting it on paper or typing it, I start to get back into my own perspective. And so, having that attitude of gratitude is important, and appreciating, I really appreciate the small things now, especially. It's like being in this position that we're in. It's how do we take advantage of this time to just be grateful for being in the house with my family, and enjoying this time together. It's so much to be grateful for, and the relationships that I've built with my sons, and it's powerful stuff, and I have to remind myself, because I can take things for granted a lot, in this life I've been given. Like there's a lot to be grateful for. So gratitude is a big thing. Also, fellowship, that's something that I struggle with, honestly, man. I miss you guys. I really miss you guys. Your family but when you were living in Sacramento, was a really big part of our spiritual growth as a family for Kelly and I. And we miss y'all, and so just being out at the service yesterday was like, we talked after the service, and I was like, oh, man, I just miss Doug preaching, man. He speak to my heart. There's just something there's just that connection, you know, and I know part of it comes from your, you know, we did life together, you know, you coached my sons in football, you know, I got to get out there and be on the sideline, you know, assistant coaching out there. And that was a great time. And you just showed me like how God works in your life. And it was just so attractive to me. I'm like, man, this guy, like your family's walking it out with Christ and it's powerful. And I see it. And I want that for my family. And that was inspiring to us and is inspiring to us. Just a side note too. We were wrapping up you were wrapping up the message yesterday, and I was up bopping around and you're like, yeah, you got to give some love, you know, hugs to your loved ones. And I look at my boys, and as I'm looking at my boys, you're like, Jagger, I see you sitting there. And I'm like, what? Because I was going to go give them a hug, and then I go give my boys a hug, you know, and it was a great moment to share with you, you know, although you didn't see it, it was cool. That was a great moment. But yeah, so fellowship is another big thing, you know, and I struggle with that because in my band, I'm the only believer in my band. And, but one thing that was really cool is, on our last tour in Europe, this kid, Stefan, this German kid, he was working on our road crew. I found out, he was a believer. And so we would sit down with the word every once in a while and get into it, you know, we'd throw down a prayer before I go on stage. And so to have somebody out there with me that was a believer that was fighting that same battle, you know, because out there on the road, there's a lot of darkness out there, and it's there if you want it. And so to have the armor of God out there on the road is powerful, you know, so fellowship, you know, having some people in your life that sharpen you, I think is really important. And then also for me, having some people in my life that are kind of struggling with their walk, or, you know, in my case, I go to meetings where people are trying to get sober, you know, so I think that's a place where God's called me, is to work with other men that struggle with some of the same issues I have with substance abuse. And that's been really good. But, you know, back to gratitude, that's to me, that's a really powerful one.
Yeah. Well, I just think you laid out a whole plan for everybody. You talk about, I'm not going to forget, hit the caps.
Got to hit the cap. What?
You got to hit the caps. So we got to pray, right?
Yeah.
We got to have fellowship, and we got to be grateful in what we do. And then, you know, I think the part that's challenging to me, and this kind of goes along with the message yesterday, where we're like, demand intimacy. All these things we're talking about, create intimacy with Christ. And the other thing then is just like being dedicated to actually studying the Bible rather than just reading it. Because just reading it's like checking off a box. Hey, I've read the Bible today, and I check off a box, and it doesn't really sink in and mean anything. That's born out of commitment and obligation versus passion to just know Jesus. And so, man, Jacoby, you're slinging it this morning, and I love this stuff that you're dropping for people. This is so good. And man, we love you, dude.
Yeah, we miss your family too.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I miss those sidelines where we're yelling. Remember the one game. I know Joey's listening. Ironman, Joey Ironman. He's probably at the donut shop, you know.
Oh, dude. Hey, Joey bag of donuts.
Joey bag of donuts. Anyway, I just think it's funny because I remember one of those football games. We're all on the sidelines. Our kids are playing. We're passionate, and Joe kind of loses his mind for me. He's like, "Yeah, I want you to kill that kid." You remember that? I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do.
Joe said, "Ouch."
Joe said, "Ouch." But
man, Joe's got to do this, man. I'm gonna be watching tomorrow, man. This is gonna be and what you were saying in the service yesterday, like I really liked what you were saying about, you know, design your new norm, you know, and it got the family talking after the service about, well, what is our new norm here at the house? Because we're mandated to, I guess the end of April 30th, this, for the next month. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's, what's our new norm? And so this right here, I'm gonna get this 714, man. This is going to be part of my new norm. I like this, man. I'm gonna jump on.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll get you on.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if this keeps up going like this, maybe we'll get you on a Sunday morning too and have you share, because
that'd be great.
Where you're at. Yeah. Love to have you do it. And everybody out there, I just want to remind you, like, man, this is a moment in time.
Yep.
To allow God to change our realities and to be the decision maker, like to be the loudest voice in our lives, to say, I want something different. I want more from this life. I want more. And the way we start that is really choosing to serve Christ. I just believe that, to follow our Creator and find out what we're created for. Like, that's the challenge. God created us all for something. In order to find out what you're created for, you have to go to your Creator. And I love that. Finding that purpose is the key. And Jacoby, I have no doubt, I just want to say this before we go, I have no doubt in my mind, through this process, in your future, there's something coming your way, because your ability to love, that you're like personally to people. It's no wonder you fill stadiums for people wanting to be around you, because you have this unique gift to love people in ways that I don't think I've ever seen. Like, that's a God placed gift in your life. And I love how you speak life. I've never met anybody as encouraging as you are. You don't have the ability almost to be negative, and I love that. So thank you for that. Keep doing it. Keep it up. And we love you. Thanks for signing in today.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, one more thing, and I'll touch on this, is that, I have the ability to be negative. That's the thing. Like, I struggle with that straight up. Like, there's days that are terrible, and there's, but there's something that emanates from my heart that's that is God in me. And slowly, so long as I'm following Christ, like, it's going to keep dissipating that negativity. And so it just comes with relationship and with practice. And, my ego hates the word obedience, but it's like, that's the reality, because I can be in full flight from reality a lot of the times. And so just obedience is a big thing. And so, yeah, man, God's put me in a position, singing for this rock and roll music, that I speak to a lot of struggling youth through this music. And I'll see on message boards, I'll post about something. So I'll just say something positive or do something positive, and people are like, "Oh, we love that." And I'm like, "Man, that's coming from God inside me," And so it's purpose-driven music. I'll tell you that for sure. And I'm just thanks again for having me, dude. I really appreciate it. You guys have a great day, and let's do this again, man. Let's chop it up again.
Yeah, we'll do. Hey, let's pray before we go. We always meet at 7:14 because we believe that if we'll humble ourselves and pray, when we pray, it's like saying, God, we understand we're not in control, you are. And so I always like to end this just with praying. And I want to pray for you, bro, through this time, and for everybody else watching. Can we just do that for a minute? God, thank you for Jacoby and Kelly and their beautiful children, the Shaddix family. I pray, God, that through this time, the new normal that you create in their lives and that they create with you in their lives, Lord, that it would be something maybe that they never expected, but something so awesome, Lord. And I pray for everybody listening and watching today, that you would protect their lives. I think there's a lot of people that are watching that are worried about finances, jobs. They're worried about the future, how it's going to play out. But God, I know that you love us so much. And you promise that you are our keeper. So God, I pray that you would just keep people, that you put your hand over them. I pray you'd keep Jacoby and Kelly in a place that is immovable, that all of our faith during this time would grow instead of it failing or shrinking back, that our faith would grow as we all design a new normal in our lives. So Jesus, thank you for giving your life for us. Thank you that we have this hope in you. And thank you that you provide peace in our lives. And today we'll battle against fear. We know it's not just something that's done and one and done and we've beat it, but it's going to be a daily battle. So I pray for strength for everybody as they battle anxiety and fear today, that you would give us your peace in that. So we give you this day. We honor you, God, in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Love you, dude.
Love you,
We'll talk
man.
soon. All right.
Yes, sir.
See you guys. Have a great day.
Bye.
You
See
too,
ya.
man. Love you guys.
Love you,
Love
baby.
you.